This happened just over a month ago. I had just turned 32 and moved back to my hometown after losing my job in the city. I felt nervous but hopeful. Game night was a monthly tradition with my old friends. I thought it might help me feel less out of place. Little did I know how much that night would change everything. Jake's living room was bright and filled with familiar laughter. The shelves held old board games, and memories washed over me. On the coffee table sat an old cereal box with the words, "Mystery Box," scribbled on it. None of us knew how it got there. Curiosity pulled me in. I leaned closer. A weird tension filled the room, like the calm before a storm that we decided to include the box in our game. A knot tightened in my stomach, but I pushed it aside. We laughed, teasing each other, but something felt off. I caught muffled whispers echoing in my ear. I glanced around, but everyone was fine. It felt like shadows from our past, faint yet wrong. As the games began, I rolled the dice. I started to move my piece but noticed something shift out of the corner of my eye. One of the game pieces had moved 6 spaces ahead. I blinked hard and shook my head. I must be seeing things. I hesitated and moved my piece back. Things escalated quickly. Emily joked that the box could be a portal. We laughed, but I felt cold inside. Jake opened the box, and I leaned in with the others. Inside, there were scraps of paper with strange phrases, "Remember when?" and "Don't talk about it." My stomach dropped. Were these our memories, or was something darker at play? The laughter faded. Whispers bounced around the room, and I started to feel uneasy. At first, my friends found it funny, mimicking the whispers. But their laughs became nervous. I began to doubt the memories I thought we shared. Some moments felt twisted, others went completely blank. As the night wore on, my heart raced. I felt like I was losing track of time. I glanced at the box again. It was the way it shifted slightly that made my skin crawl. The warmth of laughter felt heavy, as if something sinister was closing in. I knew I had to leave before I was consumed by it. When I got up, I looked around. My friends were silent. They were staring at a dark corner of the room, and I felt cold fear wash over me. What was happening? I thought maybe I should say something. What did we actually dig up? My voice trembled as I spoke, thinking it was about the old memories we buried, but when I looked into their eyes, I realized I wasn't just talking about memories. I could see the truth, a shared fear. The bond we had felt like it was snapping. I felt so small and alone, when it hit me, standing there among them. Nothing would ever be the same again. What had we unleashed into our lives? I stood frozen, my heart pounding. The shadows in the corner seemed to pulse, growing darker. I blinked, but there was no escaping the feeling that something, or someone, was watching us. A chill crept down my spine, and I fought the urge to run. "Guys?" I tried again, but my voice came out small, lost in the growing tension. Jake slowly turned his head, eyes wide with fear. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. I hadn't, but the collective unease in the room was undeniable. Something had shifted in our dynamic, a fragile thread that now threatened to snap. Emily nervously laughed, but it was hollow, lacking its usual spark. "It's just a game, right? Just a stupid box." She tried to dismiss the growing discomfort, but I could tell it wasn't working on any of us. We shifted our attention back to the box. Its presence felt heavier now. Jake reached in, pulling out more pieces of paper. "Look, there are more," he said, his voice trembling. "They're all blank." He held one up for us to see. The paper looked like it had been torn from a larger sheet, but it was devoid of any writing. I glanced around to see disbelief written across my friends' faces. A sudden surge of impulse bubbled within me. "We shouldn't be messing with this." "It feels wrong," I urged, my tone urgent. "Don't be such a buzzkill," Mark retorted, but I could see doubt flickering in his eyes. Just then, the lights flickered. A nervous laughter rang out again, but I sensed it was forced. We all felt it, the growing dread that had settled among us. The atmosphere grew exaggerated, thickening like fog, stifling the sound of our voices. Suddenly, Emily jolted. "There's something in the corner," she gasped, pointing. "Do you see it?" We all turned, and I felt my stomach drop. The dark corner where we once joked about the box seemed to ripple. It was no longer just a shadow, it felt like it was alive. That's when I saw it. A figure, indistinct and hazy, flickering like an old film reel. I couldn't make out its features, but it felt like it was staring straight at us. "What the hell is that?" Jake's voice broke through my shock. Panic flooded the room. We stumbled back, instinctively seeking the comfort of one another. But the more we huddled together, the more isolating the fear felt. Without thinking, I grabbed the box, wanting to destroy it. I didn't want to know what lay inside. But that's when I noticed the remaining pieces of paper. They weren't blank anymore. Somehow, letters formed, twisting into words. "Don't look at me." I felt my breath catch in my throat. "Don't look at it," Emily echoed, her voice trembling. We were trapped, ensnared in a chilling reality. Had we really unleashed something we couldn't control? Then everything went dark. The room plunged into complete blackness, leaving only silence. Panic rose like bile in my throat. I fumbled to reach for my friends, but it felt like I was alone. "Someone turn on a light," Mark yelled, and I could hear the fear in his voice. But then I realized it wasn't just darkness surrounding us. Something was moving in it. I had to get out. I stumbled backward, heart racing. A heavy darkness seeped into my lungs, making it hard to breathe. I brushed against something cold, and I froze. Was it a wall? No, it felt wrong, like it was pulsing beneath my fingers. "Is anyone there?" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. The overwhelming silence answered back, pressing down on me. I could feel the heat of fear rise in my cheeks. Then I heard a scuffle. "I'm here," Jake shouted. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. "What is happening? Where are you?" he continued, his voice edged with panic. "Stay close," I yelled, trying to sound brave. I felt him move closer just as a chill breeze swept through the room, carrying an unsettling hum that prickled on my skin. "Did you hear that?" Emily asked, her voice quivering. I could sense the thread of terror weaving through us, tightening the more we spoke. "Shoo!" I hissed, hoping to catch whatever sound had startled her. But then the whisper came again, softer, yet clearer this time. My breath caught. "Don't look at me," it said, as if it were right in front of me. I swallowed hard. Glancing back, I felt the weight of the figure lurking in the darkness. "Let us get out of here," Mark insisted, his desperation cutting through the panic. I didn't want to wait any longer. I scanned the room, searching for the door. "Where is it?" I muttered, more to myself than anyone else. Just then, the lights flickered back on, illuminating the chaotic scene. My heart sank. The room looked the same, but it felt different, warped in some inexplicable way. The box lay in the center, untouched, as if mocking our fear. Suddenly, the papers scattered around it began to flutter, caught in an unseen wind. Panic surged through my body again. "What is happening?" I shouted. Mark grabbed my arm, pulling me closer. "We need to leave." But as I turned towards the door, I froze. The figure was back, more defined now. It shimmered as if it was glitching in and out of reality, its eyes fixated on us with an intensity that stole my breath. "What do you want?" I squeaked, battling against the urge to flee. Emily stepped forward, her expression determined. "We're not afraid of you," she shouted, but the quiver in her voice betrayed her. I could see her fingers trembling. Something shifted in the dark. The figure reacted, morphing closer, its form swirling. It was an entity shaped by our fear, feeding off the energy vibrating in the room. Everything we thought we knew, it was a lie. I yelled, taking a step back, my heart racing. I knew I had to act. I could either confront this shadow or let it consume us. Guys, focus on the box. I shouted. If it had changed everything, maybe it could change this too. But as I reached for it, the room began to pulse again, the shadows creeping forward that I grabbed the box just as everything plunged into darkness once more. A scream escaped my mouth, and then, I heard it. A whisper, distinct in my ear. Your move. The game had truly begun. The darkness enveloped me again, thicker this time. I felt the box in my hands, its cold surface grounding me, but fear splashed through my veins like ice water. I didn't know what to do next. What was in the box? My mind raced as I pried it open. Dim light flickered from inside, revealing various objects, a small figurine, a deck of cards, and a shard of glass that caught the light like a star. I could feel the weight of my friend's gaze, questioning, desperate. What if it's cursed or something? Jake whispered, his voice trembling. Maybe it can help us. I replied, my tone wavering. We need to understand what this is. Just as I reached to pick up the figurine, shadows around us pulsated in rhythm with my pulse. The room felt charged, almost electric. It was like something was waiting for me to make a choice. Don't touch it, Mark warned, a hint of panic creeping into his voice. Things keep changing. We might not want to mess with whatever this is. I hesitated. He was right. The previous shifts had already felt like a fever dream, and I feared what this new sensation meant. But the whispers grew louder, coiling around me, calling my name. Your move, they echoed again, more frantic this time. Let us just get out. Emily cried, tugging at my sleeve. I could see the fear etched into her face, and it felt like a mirror of my own. No. Wait. I shouted, desperation gripping me. If we run now, we might never understand what is happening. What if this? I hesitated, glancing at the figure. What if this opens a door we need? The shadows flickered at my words, swirling in agitation. Then, the light surged back to life, revealing the figure inching closer. The air thickened, and I felt a chill creep down my spine. It wasn't he just watching us, it was drawing energy from our fear. Stay still. I yelled, trying to hold my ground. The figure seemed to respond, morphing bizarrely, the contours sharpening into something nearly recognizable. I squinted, trying to comprehend the shifting forms. It looked like a person, but their features twisted in ways that were wrong. A face grinned unnaturally, sending shivers through my soul, then, without warning, the box erupted with a brilliant light, spilling out streams of color like fireworks. It pooled around us, engulfing the dark figure. Look! I gasped. The light transformed the figure's outline, revealing something I never expected. It was me, or at least a distorted version of myself. What is happening? Jake shouted, panic rising in his tone. Maybe it's showing us something about ourselves. I cried, the realization electrifying me. My heart pounded with renewed urgency, the reflection flickered between terror and despair, mirroring every insecurity I had ever harbored. It felt like a trap, but somehow, I felt drawn to it, compelled to understand. Face it. I yelled, my voice cutting through the chaos. The light intensified, and the figure howled in anguish, as if my words had struck a chord. And just like that, the light winked out. The room reverted to pitch black, leaving us in a suffocating silence, then a new whisper slithered into my ears, chilling me to the bone. Choose wisely. My heart raced. What had I just awakened? The blackness engulfed us, a heavy shroud that felt alive. I could hear my friends' ragged breaths, each one filled with dread. I fought to steady my own breathing, wrestling with the urge to flee. My pulse hammered in my ears, drowning out the whispers that lingered like a ghost. As I stood there frozen, I felt a pull toward the box again, the memory of the light still flickering in my mind. Maybe there was something still worth exploring inside it. Guys, we can't just stand here, I said, trying to summon calmness. We have to figure this out. Figure what out? That we might be haunted? Mark shot back, his voice edged with fear. I think we need to get out of here. Now. My instinct screamed to leave, but a strange urge held me in place. I could almost hear my name echoing in the dark. I had to know what this all meant. I reached down toward the box again, but just as my fingers brushed the edge, a loud crash echoed through the room, startling all of us. What was that? Emily gasped, her voice high with panic. I glanced back to see a shadow darting in the corner, its shape indistinct but undeniably there, flitting just beyond the reach of the dim glow now pulsing from the open box. I don't know. But we need to stay together, I said, forcing myself to sound braver than I felt. The shadows were coming to life again, creeping toward us like fingers stretching and reaching through the dark. Maybe we should look at the items more closely, Jake said, edging toward the box as if it held answers. What if one of them tells us what is happening? The idea felt risky, but I nodded. Okay, one at a time. Just stay alert. We gathered around the box while the darkness seemed to close in further. I picked up the figurine first. It was of a small man with a crooked grin, painted in colors that felt wrong. The instant I held it, images surged in my mind, echoes of laughter, friendship, and then betrayal. What do you see? Mark asked, his eyes wide, his own fears reflected in my expression. I don't know. It feels familiar, but it's like a memory I shouldn't have. I frowned, but before I could explain further, the box let out a shuddering tremor. Let me try, Emily said, reaching for the deck of cards. She flipped one over, and her face went pale. They're not normal cards. They have symbols. What do you mean? I leaned closer as she held it toward the light. The image depicted an eye, surrounded by chaotic swirling patterns. Suddenly, everything shifted again. The floor beneath us tilted, cracking like thunder, and we all stumbled. I braced myself against the box, and then the air was electric, a charge that crackled against our skin. Something's coming. Jake shouted, looking toward the shadows that pulsed with a life of their own. We need to decide. Now. The tension was suffocating. I could feel the weight of the decision, knowing it could change everything. We have to choose one thing, I insisted. It's the only way to bring clarity to whatever this is. Just as I said that, the lights flickered again and everything went dark. But this time I felt a presence behind me, something cold and malevolent creeping closer. Choose wisely, it whispered again, sending a shiver racing down my spine. Then I heard footsteps. The footsteps grew louder, echoing through the darkness, and I felt my stomach drop. I had just told us not to split up, but here we were, paralyzed and waiting for something to happen. Guys, focus. I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I turned back to the box, searching for something we could use. We have to decide. What is it going to be? The figurine or the cards? I don't care. I just want out of here. Emily shouted, her voice shaking. Emily, please. I implored. If we pick something, maybe it will help us understand what is happening. We can't keep running in circles. Before I could say more, the box suddenly glowed again, illuminating our faces for a fleeting moment. I felt the heat radiate from the figurine, making my skin prickle. It seemed to call to me, tempting me to choose it. Maybe I should take the cards, Jake said, his voice almost a whisper, as he inched towards Emily. They seem strange. They might explain a lot. As he reached out, the shadow surged forward. It felt like a tide rushing in with no escape. I barely managed to grab Jake's arm, pulling him back just in time. Don't. We can't just reach for whatever comes first. The words barely left my lips when the shadow shifted again, transforming into a shapeless mass. It undulated, filling the room with an oppressive energy. I could feel my heart racing against my ribs. A back-and-forth sensation trembled through us, terror, curiosity, dread. "Let us flip a coin or something," Mark suggested, trying to relieve the tension. But I knew it wasn't that simple. Whatever was looming behind us didn't care for our casual decisions. The mass expanded. I took a step back, barely keeping my grip on the box. Another crash echoed nearby, too close for comfort. A piece of furniture toppled over, shattering the silence and sending a shocking wave of noise through the gloom. "Choose. Now." The voice was sharper this time, and the whisper felt like ice on my spine. I turned, desperate. My eyes darted between the figurine and the cards. I had to decide quickly before something worse happened. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed the card Emily had flipped over, the one with the eye. The designs around it seemed to swirl with even greater intensity, almost alive. "Emily, show me that card again," I yelled, moving forward despite the fear that gripped me. I reached for the flash of light it could bring, and in that moment, everything snapped into focus. This wasn't just about making a choice, this was about understanding the unseen forces that had invaded our night. The swirling patterns on the cards seemed to hold an answer, a way out. "I think the cards can lead us to understand what we're facing," I said, holding Emily's gaze. But as I spoke, the mass grew larger, pulsating with anger, and the darkness closed in around us. I felt the weight of so many eyes on me, eyes that were demanding a choice. "Okay, we're going with the cards," I said. Then came the sudden crack of thunder above us, and the room trembled. The shadows lunged, and everything went dark once again. Just before the light vanished completely, I caught a glimpse of a figure standing just outside the flickering glow of the box. Who are you?" I whispered, realizing that whatever was reaching for us was already inside. I blinked, trying to process what I had just seen. The figure lingered just beyond the flickering light, too far to make out any details. My pulse quickened. It wasn't just a shadow, it felt like a person, watching us. "Did you see that?" I whispered to the others, my voice barely audible. Emily, still trembling, nodded. "What was that?" It looked familiar. Before I could respond, the darkness deepened, swallowing all but the faint glow from the box. I could feel the weight of the void pressing around us, thick and suffocating. The cards inside the box rustled as if something within was alive, longing for attention. "Stop. We need to stay together," I urged, even as fear made me want to bolt. "What do we do next?" "There are words on the back of the cards," Jake said, his hands shaking. "Maybe they can help." I focused on the box, and as the shadows danced menacingly around us, I reached for it again. The itch of anticipation clawed at my mind. Each card was a possibility, a potential guide through whatever darkness pressed against us. Which card should we look at first? Just then, a frigid breath swept through the air, whispering secrets I couldn't grasp. I shivered. It sounded like a chorus, a cacophony of voices, overlapping and indistinct. "Let us try the eye card first," I suggested, grabbing it with a sense of urgency. I flipped it over and read aloud the words inscribed, "The Watcher sees all, hidden from view, revealing truths to those who pursue." "What does that even mean?" Mark asked, eyes darting around the room. "I don't know," I admitted, feeling the weight of every eye piercing through the gloom. But if this was the key to our escape, I had to keep going. Maybe we need to focus, think about what we want to know. As I concentrated, the box pulsed with light once more, brighter than before, illuminating the figure standing nearby. It stepped closer, and I gasped. The familiar face stared back at me, much too familiar. "Jack," I breathed, realizing it was my old friend who had vanished last summer during a camping trip. His face was hollow, a reflection of the shadows that engulfed him, but his eyes, the same bright blue, burrowed into my soul. "What happened to you?" I choked out. My heart raced, and panic set in. His mouth opened, but no sound emerged. Instead, the shadows wrapped around him tighter, distorting his form as if he were part of a dark illusion. I felt my grip on the box tighten, the reality of the situation slamming into me. We weren't just playing a game, we had stumbled into something far more sinister. Get out of here. Jack's voice finally broke free, the urgency slicing through the air. It's not safe. Don't touch. The shadows surged forward, drowning his warning. Darkness enveloped us completely as the box ricocheted with electric energy, leaving me gasping in the stifling void. I could feel the edges of panic clawing at me, but something deeper instinct kicked in. I clung to the card, determined to learn the truth before it was too late. Jack's face fading into the dark only fueled my resolve, then everything shifted. A blinding light exploded from the box, catching the mass off guard. In that instant, I could feel a power building within me, weaving through every instinct. That's when I realized I wasn't just a player in this game. I was a part of it. The blinding light filled the room, and I squinted against its glare. It was almost too much to bear, but I felt something shift within me. The fear was still there, but it was mingled with a strange sense of clarity. I could hear the others gasping beside me, each of them caught between fear and wonder. Keep your eyes on the box. I shouted, trying to gather everyone's focus. The light dimmed just enough for us to see the cards fluttering wildly, almost vibrating with energy. I didn't know how much time we had. Just as the light faded, something surprising happened. The card I had picked, the I card, began to glow, brighter than anything else in the room. It drew me in. I could almost hear it calling my name, pulling at my fingers. Look! Emily yelled, pointing. It's showing something. A scene began to emerge from the card, silvery images swirling like mist. In a heartbeat, I recognized the campsite from last summer, the one where Jack had disappeared. The familiar trees loomed around a fire pit, empty chairs sitting in a cruel mockery of happy memories. I reached out, compelled by a mix of dread and curiosity. What is this? I whispered, still afraid to touch the card's surface. Is that Jack? Mark asked, squinting at a figure that flickered in and out of view near the fire pit. It was hard to tell through the distortion, but the silhouette did look like him. Maybe he's trying to tell us something. Jake said, heart racing. Before I could answer, another shadow lunged from behind the trees in the image, a dark mass twisting and writhing with a life of its own. It felt familiar too, something darker than the shadows we had seen here. For a moment, I blinked as a chill ran down my spine, realization dawning. That's not just the woods, I stammered. It's the same feeling. The shadows, they came from there. Stop! Emily shouted, her voice an edge of panic. Stop it right now. Before I could grasp what she meant, the box erupted again, throwing a wave of nauseating energy around us. The images from the card tightened in a pulse, warping the illusion even further. I could feel our grip on reality slipping. The shadows from the card felt closer, their tendrils reaching out beyond the light. The air thickened again, drawing breaths short and labored. We need to shove it back. Jake yelled. Before it pulls us in. Right. I nodded, my heart racing. The I card seemed to pulse with urgency. I took a deep breath and gripped the edges of the card with both hands. We might have to act quickly. On 3, push it back into the box and focus. 1, 2, 3. Emily shouted that we shoved the card into the box as if trying to seal a wound. Light exploded outward, forcing the darkness to temporarily retreat. But as it did, I felt a sharp tug on my mind, as if the shadows were trying to infiltrate my thoughts, to pull me back into their grip. Don't let it take you. I yelled, but my voice was barely audible above the chaos. Then, everything went dark. An immediate silence enveloped us, pressing down with a weight I couldn't escape. I blinked, trying to comprehend what had just happened. The box lay still, but an eerie chill curled around my ankles. A whispered voice brushed against my ear, low and echoing. You shouldn't have come back. I glanced at the others, their faces pale, and I knew we hadn't just escaped dark shadows. Something deeper was waiting for us to explore. Something dangerous. Then the reality hit me. Jack was still out there in some twisted form, trapped somewhere in those woods. Would we be next? The darkness hung around us like a thick fog, smothering any sense of safety. I looked at the group, their fear was palpable. Mark looked like he was about to speak, but his mouth moved silently. Emily shivered, her arms wrapping tightly around herself. I felt an urge to reassure them, but how do you comfort friends who just faced, whatever that was? Did we really just witness that? Jake whispered, his voice shaky. What was in that card? I don't know, I said, trying to sound steadier than I felt. But it felt real. My mind raced, piecing together fragments from the vision. Jack's image, the dark shape. The woods had a life of their own. We might be running out of time. Just then, a soft rustling noise broke the silence, pulling my attention toward the corner of the room. My heart pounded. I turned, eyes wide. Did you hear that? I asked cautiously. Emily nodded, her gaze darting to where the noise came from. It's probably just the wind. There's no wind inside, Mark replied, and I could hear the tremor in his voice. We all stood frozen, waiting for whatever it was to show itself. Suddenly, the box on the table rattled. The sound surged around us, creating a chaotic rhythm. As I stepped closer, I noticed one of the cards slipping toward the edge. The I card. It didn't feel right, it felt alive. I reached out to steady it, but it was too late. The card tipped over and fluttered to the floor, landing face up. Look at it! Jake yelled, his eyes wide. The image swirled again, revealing a scene that twisted my stomach. There was Jack, but this time he was not at the campsite. He stood in the depths of the woods, no longer just a silhouette but a figure that looked trapped and desperate. A faint, pleading expression crossed his face. What are you doing? Mark shouted, panic rising in his tone. Get it back in the box. I was frozen, caught in the gaze of Jack's representation. I couldn't look away. He's trying to show us something, I murmured. What if it's just a trick? Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. What if it wants to lure us in? Just as she spoke, I saw movement behind Jack. The same dark mass from before was creeping toward him, tendrils extending with an almost sickening grace. A low whisper echoed from the card. Help me know. I shouted, snapping back to reality. We have to end this. Before I could think twice, I lunged for the card and snatched it up. The shadows in the image pulsed violently as if they were aware of my intention. They twisted within the confines of the card, straining against whatever force held them back. On 3 again. I shouted. 1, 2. The door creaked open behind us with a heavy groan, interrupting me. All eyes shifted, fear painting their faces. A chill swept through the room, and I felt that same tug again. Something was pushing in from the outside. Go back. I shouted as I turned. My heart raced. But it wasn't just the dark woods or Jack's torment that was creeping in. There was something else, something that didn't belong to us, something that wanted in. Why you need to help him? Jack's voice echoed through the card, muddled and distant. That's when I saw it, another figure in the doorway, just outside our sanctuary, watching with empty eyes. Guys, I gasped, stepping back. We need to move. The oppressive darkness draped over us, thick and heavy. I felt it pushing against the walls of the room, threatening to swallow everything whole. My heart thudded loudly against my ribcage. I could barely think, let alone decide what to do next. As I looked between my friends, I could see the dread mirrored in their expressions. What is happening? Jake rasped. The anxiety in his voice made my throat tighten. Is he still there? Jack. Is there any way to help him? I asked, pushing down the urgency rising within me. I turned towards the door, feeling an energy that was foreign and tangled, seeping into our space. "It's still coming through," Emily whispered, her breath hitching. "We need to close the box, now." Mark, standing at the edge of our group, visibly shifted. "It doesn't look like it wants to go away." The shadows coiled eagerly, pulsing in response to the tension. In a surge of adrenaline, my mind raced back to the iCard, to what it had shown me. Maybe if we focus on Jack, we can reach him or at least trap whatever this thing is. I didn't know if it was a good idea, but desperation spurred me on. "Guys, on 3. If we open the box to the light, we might be able to push it back. We can bring Jack's spirit, whatever he has turned into, back with us." But before I could finish the thought, a bone-chilling howl echoed from the darkness, slicing through the silence like a knife. The air thickened around us, electric and foreboding. "Choose." The haunting voice droned from the shadows. "Choose to help him, or it will take you too." "No. We're not leaving him," I shouted defiantly. I could feel the distance growing between us with a palpable weight. We had already felt the void it had tried to create, and I wouldn't let it take us. 3. 1. 2. I breathed heavily. 3. With a collective rush, I pulled open the box once more. The crack of light broke through the murkiness, illuminating the figure of Jack hovering lethargically at the edge. "Jack!" I screamed, the sound echoing against the walls. Desperate yet hopeful, the card began to ripple with movement, and I seized it before fear made me hesitate. "Jack, it's me. We're here to help." The dark mass flickered and twisted around him, relentless in its approach, a horrible confluence of his past torment and the darkness that bled into our present. "You shouldn't have come back," Jack mouthed, his words barely audible but carried on a wave of wind that felt like a heavy burden. "Don't give in," I urged, straining against the shadows. "Fight it." In that moment, it felt as though we were all connected by something strong yet delicate, a flickering string of light in a sea of darkness. The darkness began to writhe as the light from the box enveloped us, drawing the shadowy figure back. "Focus!" I yelled, eyes fixed on the card. "We can do this." But as I reached into the light, something twisted and tangled in my mind. A vision unfolded, chaotic and raw, of memories intertwined. I saw my friends laughing, crying, turning against each other, all mediated through this darkness. It painted our fears in vivid strokes: betrayal, regret, pain. "Look past the fear. Look for Jack," I shouted, trying to tune out the dark vision. The others instinctively clung to each other, a tight knot of desperation. The pulse of light brightened, swirling louder as the dark figure shifted back, folding into itself as if discouraging our courage. I sensed it was holding back, waiting for a moment of weakness, of doubt. "Push through," Mark yelled, determination rising in his voice. "Let us bring him back." With each heartbeat, the pulse of light grew more vibrant. I could feel the fabric of reality bending, desperate to hold on to what we had unearthed. The shadows took form around the box, but we stood firm, focused on the light. That in a climactic burst, I surrendered to the energy and released the card upwards. A current of hope surged, washing over us. The shadows shrieked, coercing the essence of Jack back, a specter of what he had been. The last of the shadows began to fragment, dissipating with each flicker of the light as Jack slowly emerged, shaking and haunted but alive. "You have to go," he implored, voice hoarse. "This thing, it needs you to stay. Don't let it take you." The connection we shared quivered, but I could see the shadows were losing their grip. Slowly, bit by bit, we took steps towards the door, drawn like moths to a more honest reality that lay just beyond, while still holding the desperate fires of friendship close. Before I could respond to Jack, the pulsating light shot forth, and just like that, the shadows finally unraveled into nothingness. We stumbled out into the narrow corridor beyond the darkness of the living room. The air tasted sweet, and the murmur of old laughter lingered like a memory. Yet, in that moment of escape, I felt the darkness still echoing inside me, a shadow that would forever flicker in the periphery of my consciousness. The years melted away from our faces as we stood outside, breaths heavy with relief. But as I glanced back at the house, I still felt the weight of those unanswered questions settling on my heart. Had we emerged unscathed from our encounter? What truly lurked in the shadows of the past, waiting for its chance to be unleashed once more? I knew we might have escaped this one night, but there were echoes of darkness still intertwined with us, leaving an indelible mark. I turned away, stepping into the light of the street lamps, leaving behind only shadows. Sometimes, I still think about it. I wonder if we did the right thing, or if whatever we left behind still waits, twisting in the corners of our lives, silently watching. And that haunting uncertainty, I guess I will always carry it with me.